Well, it looks like I'm live, so I'll take a second here to go look at my Facebook page. Send those folks a note. Okay. Hello. Well, look pretty fuzzy down there, but I guess I'm in the basement there, beneath the two older members sitting in the spacecraft. You know, these pictures are actually paintings that were published by the New York Post in their book Heaven's Gate, and so I just took pictures of them, and they're enough. You know, they're not good quality. They're terrible, of course, but and they're nice paintings actually. I think they were drawn and then airbrushed by Al Lodi. I remember watching him do the Rings of Saturn, which I don't have here. I've got to go look for that and put that in here, I think, somewhere. But when we were in this place that was called, this office actually had about 4 rooms in it, I guess. And Tiendo called it Astrologics. And so that's this picture. Wish you could see my cursor. But anyway, so I guess I can describe these a little bit. If there's something else that somebody has an idea they want me to talk about, just let me know in the chat room. I'd be glad to comments or questions, it doesn't matter. Communication, that's the good thing about this. So right above my head on this picture is a picture of two. Well, let me first tell you, these pictures came from, Tiendo started a project in about 1981 or 2. somewhere in there. Might have even been before 81. But a little bit. But we were in houses, I believe. So anyway, I'm always trying to remember things better. So bear with me, please. Or don't, of course. But so they started a project among 3 students and gave them these ideas of what the next level was like, and they said that these pictures that they helped paint were a fiction based on the truth, because the whole idea is that this is more realistic of what the kingdom of heaven really is. It's a kingdom, it's a corporation even, though use that term at one point, to get us out of our spiritual head. And I remained in my spiritual head even though I didn't know I was. I mean, it was to the degree that, I got away from it. It doesn't take much to have... and when I say spiritual head, I'm referring to the mind of the vehicle that grows from birth and has certain characteristics of thinking that are not attached to the vehicle. So that thinking is going on, above the brain, even physically. It's all frequencies, organization of frequencies. And that's the mind of the human. And that starts with the birth of the vehicle. And then all the other discarnates, the individuals that are outside their bodies, because then are basically feeding off all the living humans in time and energy by, bringing the vehicle opportunities, and then who we are then is the decider of what to do. And what to say, what to think, what to feel, what to feel, of course, is, built into the vehicle. It's a sensitive vehicle that's been made here, and a number of ways. And that gets beat out of a lot of people early, and the next level would consider that making a positive out of a negative when that happens to somebody, so that they can actually rise above it and not let them, not let it keep them down. And of course, in the human kingdom, Doe even said that if he had to, as I recall, I hope I didn't get this wrong, because I didn't hear him say anything like it before that. But that if he had to be in the human kingdom, knowing what he knows, he'd have to be drunk. So that's like, okay, so the more we awaken, the harder it is, because awakening is a constant. There's no awakening. I mean, there's stages of awakening, sure. You can even, like, say you get a stage of awakening when you get a really good job you're after. You're kind of like, wow, I'm getting what I'm looking for. And so it wakes me up, to keep on going on my path. And so it's what we want, actually, that the next level wants us to learn for ourselves how to reach it. By trial and error. That's the way it works, right? And you know, and taking big steps, taking baby steps, taking everything in between. And to climb the path of the mountain that we build for ourselves, the path of the human mountain, which, you know, there's many ways to the top of the mountain. I don't know how to describe all the ones that there might be. I know how to describe them as religion is. All the religions are like little fingers, I guess, on that vine that's goes to the top of the human kingdom mountain on earth, and wherever else there's equivalent to humans, which Tiendo talked about how the Luciferian space aliens were human equivalents. I'm going to segue now because of that, because which I do a lot of times involuntarily by losing track of where I am, but because I keep on going down these roads that keep on explaining something else, my point of view, and sometimes it's worthless. But so I beg your forgiveness when I do that, and it's worthless. But then I think I get some help sometimes from above to get back on track, to make use of the time, because the subject matter, there's nothing any more important than getting a bit greater sense of reality, and that's what's so good about what Tiendo were teaching, was that they didn't teach it in religious terminology. And we didn't. It was 10 years before we. It was over 10 years, 12 years actually, I think, before we. Doe brought us in a bunch of Bibles, because it was after T left her vehicle. And he was like with the things that were happening in the world, with the Waco thing. But even before that, because wasn't that like 92, Waco? I'm not sure if I remember that right. Actually, I was going to talk about something, but I got something in the chat room, I guess. So I want to take a look at that. Mac and Stack. I love your lessons. I am much younger, 28, and I am trying my best to get to the current events. I remember you saying Doe having to be drunk to function in the real world. How do you stay motivated through trial and error when you have disappointments and letdowns more often than not? It's never worthless. I enjoy the love hearing you speak. All right. Well, I can only give you the things that I was given by Tiendo to try to answer that, so I can't be exact, but well, I'd be asking for help from the next level to help me through my problems. That's the first thing I would say to do. Project your questions about your choices as far into the heavens as you can imagine. Even beyond the heaven, beyond the stars, if you want to think of it that way. And to go to the highest source you can reach. Whatever you think that, the highest source, and that's going to go to and end up going to where T and Do are. But if that's more comfortable for your vehicle, to think of it that way, it's fine. But that's the best advice you can get. Now, the kind of advice you're going to get from the next level, it can be anything. Because they're not really trying to convince us of anything. They're trying to expose us to enough experience that we have to engage in so that we can start to make choices that they will know are indicating that you're not satisfied with what's here in the human kingdom. And it's not necessarily something conscious to be dissatisfied with the human kingdom, because I never really thought about it while I was in the group, even though they talked in those terms a little bit. And maybe not those exact terms as dissatisfied, but or not liking the world, hating the world. It's like, what kind of person hates the world? Look how beautiful it is, right? Well, yes, for the creatures that are living in that world, the world is the most beautiful thing that exists in the overall, compared to the individuals that created this. And it's so frustrating to see humans acting like they created it. Not by saying that, but by thinking that they control the weather. Or thinking that the because they can do a little bit here and there. I don't know if they can make it rain in one spot a little bit, once in a while, here and there. What do they got to do that? Put something in space, carrying water, and drop it down in the upper atmosphere or whatever. I know they did a dry ice thing. I'm not gonna. I can talk for a long time about the reasons why I know that humans aren't causing global warming. And the biggest one, the biggest evidence I have, which I don't expect to be evidence for anybody else, I know I got off the track of what Mac and Stack was saying. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I do that. I can't help myself. But I do try to come back to the chat room and look at if I think I addressed a little bit of. I know I addressed a lot of it because of who to ask. That's actually enough, really, because they don't help you by putting voices in your head or putting evil circumstances in front of you. To where they're going to test you to see if you're strong enough to handle it. No. What they do is they work with what other people want, and they give you things to think about, like through the media, through anything, through people, that when you hear it, you might perk up to it a little bit. As something different, because you wouldn't perk up like that all the time. Maybe never, hardly ever. But you kind of perk up to it, and if you were asking at the time, and this might take some time of asking, because the next level wants to know that you're serious. I don't know what time, but it's not doing nothing about it if you don't feel anything coming back or any thoughts coming back. Because even if you get a thought, when you perk up to that thought, it doesn't mean that it's from them automatically, because there's other ways that I think individuals have enough power in their spiritual vibration, if you want to put it that way, enough voltage, or however you want to measure it. I don't know how you would measure it. It'd be a very fine measurement, I guess, compared to our dense reality of frequencies. But however that developed, I don't know. I think I lost track of where I was going. I think I got too far out there. I went into one of those worthless times that I talked about before. But there might have been something worthy in there, you know, but it brings me back to the subject of how to stay motivated through trial and error when you have disappointment and letdowns more often than not. Well, see, the thing is that a lot of times we create our circumstances to where we think we have to have something, and so we're let down by it, or somebody does something to us that maybe they committed not doing, and that became a disappointment. So you're disappointed in a person or a thing or a something we were looking for that caused us a disappointment because it didn't turn out the way we thought we wanted it to. Okay, so those are all potential lessons. If they don't work out, to me that's sometimes a good sign that it's not worth pursuing that same vein again. But you might have to do that several times before you proceed in that same vein again. And I don't think you have to. You can actually learn from the first experience, even. I think that's what Noah was talking about in part, that T was so advanced over him that she would learn very quickly. She would size up things very quickly in making decisions. Where me, it takes a week to decide what kind of, what kind of a camera I'm going to buy, I was going to say, but because I just had the opportunity to buy a camera. So well, of course I didn't know anything about cameras, so I'm not really, like knocking myself, but it doesn't matter. I know the difference between somebody that can cut right to the chase of the problem. And I know there's people like that in the human kingdom that have very sharp brains. But I happen to know who T was, and I'm still learning who T was. I don't absolutely know who T was. I can't conceive actually of how much mind had grown through that soul that became named as T when it was coming through Bonnie Lou Truesdale Nettles. I wanted to talk about that a little bit, actually. I mean, I could talk about these pictures, but I'll just check the chat room a little bit here first. Where are those pictures on the screen from? Were they painted by a student? Okay, good. I'm glad you're asking that, because I just put these together today, because they're from... these came from pictures that were drawn and painted, airbrushed by Alodi, one of the students of Tiendo, in 1982, approximately. And And the one on the far left top, it was basically it was a movie. It was going to be the illustrations for a movie script, a movie that Tiendo felt to start a project to try to make, and I just had an idea. I started thinking about something else. I'm sorry. And so anyway, so they assigned 3 students to get together, and they they sat with them a number of times. I don't know how many, and gave them all these ideas. And 2 of them were artists, of some, of that vein, so that they had the talents with drawing, and one did cartooning, and one was trying to be an actor in Hollywood, and he was on the Wheaties box. His name was Dan Sodi. And his name in the vehicle that he had, but his vehicle passed and didn't go with the 38. He left after that. I think from complication from AIDS or something like that. I'm not sure exactly. Any more definitive than that. But a gentle soul, a gentle, wonderful soul, Dan Sodi. Anyway, but I'm just thinking about him a little bit. So, let's see if there's anything else to say about that beforehand. There is a lot to say about it, actually. So, I guess I should just go into what the pictures mean, huh? Okay. That's how I drift off sometimes. So anyway, so I'll get to the top left. That's the Earth Lab. And that was what he was saying. What I needed to say was that Tiendo said this was fiction based on the truth. So right off the bat, so on the top left is the Earth Lab. And that's inside Pluto. So the bottom beneath that is the planet Pluto, and that's like an opening, a doorway, that opens kind of in a louver fashion. And then when you're on the far right top, you see the light coming in from that louvered door, shining on the I guess the entrance to the Earth Lab, and you can see clouds in the background. So it's got some atmosphere, and you can see what looks like another shape. So it's like a world within a world. Maybe that's the Earth. Maybe the Earth is actually, with its entire atmosphere, right inside that Pluto. Holy smokes. I know science fiction probably done stuff like this, but I don't think this is science fiction at all. This is, the planet is beyond belief what this planet is. We can't see everything that's on the planet, of course. And there's a spacecraft, I believe, according to Tiendo in the Book of Revelations, which they didn't teach out of the Book of Revelations, by the way. They didn't teach out of the Bible at all. We started studying the Bible in the 90s, but it says that the New Jerusalem is actually about 1,360 miles square, by my estimates. And I know that there's other numbers that people have thrown around, but it's approximately that amount. Give or take 100 miles or two. So, which when I go down that road of describing it, then it takes me to the the distance from the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean. It's about that amount in the south part, and in the north part, maybe not that amount. I don't know. But it depends whether you can actually take a, can't you take a square and just tilt it? Because I started to think that it was that shape. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense, really. Because I think it definitely goes up the west coast. I just don't know how the line. I'm trying to describe where this geographical footprint might be that was described as 1,360 miles square. But see, the thing is, I'm limiting it. It could be any size. Because if that's the size of the actual spacecraft, then we don't know anything about the energy that's putting out. The different frequencies that they could make walls with, so that only some frequencies can get through to certain places. So this way they can actually have a network there in a database, and all the spirits could be like in the database. That's the database. It's like the brain, but above the brain. It's existing in the brain and outside the brain. And more of it actually exists outside the brain. The more, I don't know if just facts, memorizing facts is growing the brain. I guess maybe it is. I don't know. I guess it depends on what kind of facts they are. I guess, I mean, you can grow the brain, I don't know how many different ways, but I'm getting off track. Because I can't really talk to that with any kind of intelligence. But, so I described those three. Let's go to the others. This one here in the middle top is the weather lab. So that's like a big hurricane. And wow, did we see, like, I just saw these very pictures, that very picture of Hurricane Florence, I think it was, off the east coast of the United States. Hit down towards Florida, no, North Carolina, I think, maybe, or South Carolina area. And then Michael hit, I think, a little above that, right? I don't know who I'm asking. But I do get help from the chat room, so I pay attention. I like to be corrected. That's part of the classroom, to like to be corrected. Doesn't mean that everything that somebody says to you is worthy of correcting, but what Doe said to me about that was that, do you regret that you did it? If you did something that you didn't feel was right, because if you didn't, don't apologize to whoever you did it to, unless you regret doing it. So. Okay, let's see. I guess I was going to go back to the pictures. Pictures. Well, no, Weather Lab, I mean, wow, it's like, you know, for the longest time, since they've been talking about the global warming being human created, boy, the Republicans look good to me. You know, and Trump even, you know, was talking about. I mean, I'm not a Trump fan. I'm not a Hillary fan. I'm not anybody's fan. I don't like any of that. I'm disconnected from it. I think it's all a big mess, and I don't see hardly any of my Father's mind in there. My older member's mind, my Heavenly Father's mind. From what everything they taught, and it was in the records, what Jesus taught, there's none of that in any of that, although they use those terms sometimes. But I don't know when T and Doe had us, you know, we were following the news every day. Through the satellite dish and through cable TV. Cable TV? Did we get cable then? No, I think mostly through a satellite dish. We got AP or the feeds. So it's just your words on the screen. You just read them, which was really neat. It's like you feel like you were seeing the inside story, you know, before the reporters make newspaper out of it. And just going down that little avenue. I'll get back to that global warming. Yeah, and you know, and so now you've got people that are thinking they're associating with space aliens, and that the space aliens are going to fix everything, because they're like the Brotherhood, or you know, whatever group they are. You know, they're all about love and peace and kindness, and so they're going to bring heaven on earth. The illusion of that, which is impossible even as a factual basis, because heaven is what's elevated above the earth. It's not the earth itself. That's what it means. That's what Ranos means. And that's what I forgot what the name is in the Hebrew or the Aramaic. But in the Greek was Aranos. And right, the next level is controlling the weather. I mean, it's like here's some logic about that. I'm gonna put some logic behind it. I'm gonna try to anyway. I hope it is. And I'm gonna have to change my screens. I hope my video is still working. So just bear with me a second if you don't mind. Should be able to do this properly. Okay, you should start getting something soon, I hope. And if you don't, well, okay, let's see here. It hasn't changed on your screen yet, so I might just have to read it. Okay, I'll do that then. Okay, I'm going to search for something. I got to search for roar or roar, I think, but as through the New Testament. and see what happens. Oh, I didn't click something right. Okay, uproar, uproar. There it is. So if it ever changes on the screen, now I know people have been over these scriptures, 100,000 times, or 1,000,000 times, 1,000,000,000 times, who knows how many times. And so we've heard it all before, and it can be so old hat that, but that doesn't make them any less accurate. But to put on eyes, in those eyes, the whole key to the prophecies is the timing of things and the interpretation, of course, and the translation, of course, is, in order to come up with the best interpretation, you need the best translation. And so that's why I use the software. I look at all the words that are said in a verse. And in fact, I should, I don't think I have to do that in this case, because it's pretty straightforward, which many times it is, because, by the way, Tiendo said that all the things that Jesus said could be counted on as true in the red letters, or not just the red letters, but actually what Jesus said in the red letters in the 4 Gospels, not the book of Acts, because they're making red letters out of what they say that Paul said happened when the Luciferian space alien fallen angels attacked him and blinded him, and then took him over by just saying a few words here and there. Though the next level can make, for him, for that soul, the next level can help them. So it can be a good thing for that soul if you can get past that experience. And that, it would be subconsciously, someone's calling me from, I don't know if I can call and lose my video signal. Let me try. No, I don't know if I can. I gotta test this sometime. I don't want to lose my I'm sorry. This is still streaming, right? I'm sorry, I got lost there. I know that maybe you just saw my, my silly face here, but I got a phone call from somebody, and I tried to take it, but then right when I was going to click, to try to share the microphone, I didn't want to risk throwing off this microphone. I don't know if this can split it. I don't know if it will go to both places. I'd like to know, actually, because I would like to take some calls. I guess I should have tried it. If anybody in the chat room knows that whether I can, that'll work for me with my technology, I'd appreciate help knowing that. So I'm going to go back to what I was going to talk about there with the Gospel of Luke, chapter 21, which I see you still don't have it on your screen. So I'm going to read it. Luke 21:25. And there shall be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, and the sea and the waves roaring. Okay, now we know this has been ongoing. We've been seeing the waves roaring and all the sea and the stress of nations. That's been happening for a long time, and you know, especially all over the world, right? But we're not talking about all over the world. But we are talking about all over the world. But it intensifies, is what is happening in a certain location. Even though the intensification of it is still gradual compared to the events around the world that are huge. You know, I mean, there's Sumatra, the tsunami took out what? Tens of thousands of people died from that, I believe, and in Japan. So the events outside the United States, Chile, you know, there's no place I can't name, but Africa seems to doesn't have many. Or the earthquakes in Iran and the Middle East, they've had a bunch. They had a bunch right around the year. I want to go back and look at that, where the peaks were of earthquakes. Because, you know, that was another thing that Jesus said would be the signs and the increase of them, you know. So the next level, they do things in such a way that it's gradual for a long time, and then in a relatively short period of time, inventions start, science fiction is started in the mid-1800s, you know, and civil rights movements, and women's rights movements, things that were, you know, people that were suppressed because of their gender or their race or their ethnicity, you know, the Irish, the Chinese, the Mexicans, the South Americans, you know, big time, all along. So the next level is like, you know, designing this, and it's a work in progress. You know, it's like it's always changing, and they keep up with all of it, and we don't have the clue that they keep up with it. And a lot of it's automatic. You know, it's built in. It's programs. You know, the flesh is programmed by the genetic code. You know, it's like genetic code. Yeah, the scientists name it genetic code. And then I don't want to get into that. That's one of a bad characteristic I have. I can be a little sarcastic. That was one of the three things that T told me would keep me off the spacecraft. I was a little too pleased with myself, was the first thing. I like to be seen as something special, was the second thing. And I'm sarcastic with humans. Of course, in that position, we were in human vehicles, but what they were focusing on was the graduation of the soul into the next level, which is the soul vehicle. That grows inside the human vehicle and outside the human vehicle. Anyway, I get into that because I don't want to leave things without trying to describe what T and Do taught about that. And so I'm willing to lose track of where I was going or what I was saying. I'm back to Scripture. I do want to get back to that. And so yeah, so the sea and the waves roaring were, you know, they said them together. The sea and the waves roaring. So, of course, that word is, in the Greek, sounding. Sounding. Interesting. Producing frequencies. It's stirring up the frequencies, isn't it? Wow. I hadn't thought of it that way. If you thought of the spirit world as, you know, being from, extending from, you know, maybe inside the ground to some degree, I don't know, to above the ground, you know, within the atmosphere, you know, maybe it requires a certain amount of density of atmosphere for it to be maintained alive, so to speak. Even though it's not really life, it's just like saving a program, software on a disk. You got these little disks down now, what, 128 gigabytes or more than that on these little disks. And I used to work with 64K of memory on the computers on the Televideo 402H. Anyway, that's beyond the point. That's worthless information, if I ever heard it. So, okay, so you know, of course, you know, this is saying that Jesus knew that there was going to be hurricanes during this time, okay, and now they're saying that, you know, there's more of them now, or they're more powerful. And I agree, there's more. It seems like there's more that are of a greater strength. Seems to be pretty evident, especially starting with Katrina and then Sandy. Sandy did a hook turn into the coast of New Jersey. It was like parallel to the coast, and then it did a right angle turn. I wonder if they think humans did that. But I mean, if people think that, you know, the Earth is flat and that the moon, nobody's gone to the moon and NASA's phony, I mean, NASA has its phoniness. Don't get me wrong. But I can even reason why, you know, I don't need to get into anybody that's paying very much attention to things I'm saying, and that T and Do believe, they're not going to think all those things. I don't think. I mean, I can understand examining it, and even wondering for a while, you know. But I mean, because you know, I mean, we are the fish in the fishbowl, and we have seen a lot of evidence of how we can be, you know, double speak. That was 1984, right? Was that book, Double Speak, and you know, and so it's all, you know, conspiracy theory, right? Until you find out that you're in the conspiracy, you're part of the conspiracy. To stay in the conspiracy. I mean, we're all in it to some degree, I guess. You know, it's like I don't think you can be a human and not be in it. Of course, you're not paying attention to the media at all, then you're not in it, I guess. But then, if you're around people that are into the media, you know, and then you see it perform, then you're part of it again. You have to be alone by yourself, and never go to town to sell your food. And walk into a club or something and, you know, watch what's on TV. I don't know if there's any place like that anymore on the earth. Maybe there is. Next level could probably keep things hidden. I imagine they could, you know, hover over a certain spot, or even land on a certain spot, and just their spacecraft would not allow anybody to even think about going in that direction. Put out like a magnetic field or something, you know, that says, "You are not the droids we're looking for," which I don't doubt is possible, to put that kind of thought. And Tiendo talked about that as, they didn't talk about it, they just had this game that they played. Well, I don't know if T did it, and I don't know if Do did it, but he approved of the students doing it, which I never did it. Well, I don't know if I did it. I remembered the game no, I remembered the premise, or the belief, or the understanding, or that the thoughts are real also. They have frequency, and you can plant them on something. So it's like your ray gun, you know, planting a thought on, when you're looking at that box of cereal and reading it, you're planting your thoughts on that. Because you're watching the reflection of the light off of that. That light's going into your eyes, and your eyes are recording it and playing it back, interpreting it. So, and you know, that's like, that goes right into the holograms. The idea of holograms that Einstein and Bohm were working on. In the book I read it was called The Holographic Universe. That really opened my eyes to, you know, realizing that, you know, when they said they put a laser beam through an apple that was a tiny laser beam compared to the size of the apple, and then they put it through the apple, and then on the other side of that, there was a whole apple, I believe, the experiment, and they put a holographic plate of some sort, which I don't understand the technology of, but maybe it's some kind of plasma or something. But I don't really understand even probably the photography that well, you know, mathematically or anything like that. I don't have that kind of a brain, but maybe I could. Wow, I just saw that as like, wow, it's like tuning into the genetic structure is what you're doing. And the genetic structure then can be put right on the tip of that, on any kind of matter. You can implant that genetic structure in that matter. Through light, through the energy of the light. It's riding on top of it. And gets implanted. I can finally see that, I think. Alright, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I got it all backwards. But anyways, I just, you know, put you through my thinking anyway, for whatever it's worth, potentially. So, so here's the other thing. Well, the perplexity of, what was it? Perplexity, nations. Okay, distress of nations, we've seen that for a long time too, of course, with the wars. But he talked about the wars differently. You say you would see rumors of wars and rumors of wars. So they already happened. Those were World War I and II, I believe. And Korea and all of them, you know, Vietnam and you know, they all kind of happened in a close period of time, starting from 1900 or the early 1800s is when somebody was down at war in the Philippines, I think, right? The Rough Riders. The first, well, I don't need to go to the history books, but to remember it. But I forgot the name of the president or the general there, or the president maybe it was. Anyway, Theodore Roosevelt maybe it was. Anyway, boy, do I ramble on sometimes. That's when I should, you know, pick out the flute. I didn't blow my horn today, so I got to do it. I got to do it. I don't like to play dark sounding things to tea and dough, because it's kind of tea and dough's information is rejoiceful. It really is. I do play rejoiceful a lot on the street. I know, you know, I do recognize the value of this information. And when I play like that just now, it was like I was smearing it with something that was not right. Not that music isn't good, and it's got its place. I mean, I do that when I'm not talking about tea and dough. Even though during the time I'm here on live, I know I'm not always talking about tea and dough. So you can't help but get some distortion because of my package. I mean, it's not distortion in the sense that I try to catch myself, or the next level maybe helps me catch me. However it works, I don't care how it works. Or somebody could correct me from the chat room if I say something that's not accurate, and I try to correct it right away. Sometimes I just have to examine it for a little bit. But I need to relate it to something else that tea and dough taught in my mind before I take it on. Or there's something that Jesus said, because in the four Gospels. So that's what my base of reliability is based on. And secondarily to the book of Revelations. But that doesn't mean that I don't treat that material as if it's exactly what it was meant to be. But tea and dough didn't they didn't say that that was totally reliable. So it's what they said and didn't say that's actually important when it comes to trying to stay on the straight and narrow. Sometimes it's what they didn't say, of course, because that's the way they help us grow. They don't tell us all the pitfalls, because then they'd be programming us. We'd become like robots. But they don't want any robots. They can make robots all day long. They can make humans, and humans can remain going through life like the animals do, the same. They don't have to grow to be able to produce technology and fly to the moon and everything else. But the next level has an interest in of growing humans so that they can be a stepping stone into the evolutionary level above human, which is physical and it's many-membered. It's not which is a more accurate way of thinking about everything. So when we read a verse in Scripture, I automatically know that, you know, it's got all these different connotations with it that make it hard to see it for what it is. Not that I'm always seeing it for what it is. I know I learn a lot of things every time I read a scripture. It seems like I learn something else about it, but or I have more insights to how that can be translated, you know, or not just translated, but applied to the continent. You know, I mean to the Earth, to the. It's pretty amazing, actually. I mean, it's not really amazing when somebody has the overview. They have the overview, so they know it's going to be amazing to us. And they want it that way, and they want it to be a mystery also. Tino taught that the next level also has a conspiracy. In addition to the space aliens having a conspiracy and the humans, governments having conspiracies, they all have conspiracies, I think. Well, I don't know. I can't say all the countries. I don't know, but you know, I mean, business is a conspiracy, is it not? So, Newspeak. That's a great book. Oh, yeah, thanks. Wasn't there a flute player that was John Thompson? Oh, I'm sorry, I read your name. I try not to read last names on here. I don't know how many people are going to end up wading through these broadcasts, but never can tell, I guess, right? I mean, I think they can be a great value. They are to me, and I know some of you that are listening, I feel that from. Because they're trying to be of service to Tiendo. So it's like totally in line, and you know how the whole push for green energy and green politics and green rebellion and green space aliens, you know, Martians and the first green, you know, that I know or ever heard about, and how it's all tied into green money in the United States, because the United States was the place where the Next Level chose to put down their project this time. And green as in the harvest of the green plants, as opposed to the seeds. You know, there's one thing to be planted, and there's another thing to grow up and to sprout. So they could, who knows how many souls are planted to get a certain amount to sprout. Maybe that certain amount was like around 144,000. I'm not going to give you the exact number. That doesn't make any sense. Because even though get them to sprout, you have to get them to survive the environment. Growing spirit, I think, is what their Next Level's doing. You know, to grow towards the sun, grow towards the light, and supply service to the kingdom levels, to their own kingdom level, maybe. Yeah, to their own kingdom level and to the kingdom level above them, the animal kingdom. They supply service to their own kingdom level the way that the roots of the trees, the trees will, if my understanding is correct, they will not choke out other trees. They will restrict their own growth. And I think they even help other trees with the way they grow, if I remember correctly. I heard this botanist talking about it in some documentary some time ago. Now, things like that, I don't doubt at all. Because you know, that's why we can hardly judge what we can't see, you know, and measure. And oh, there was an example of that. Oh, what was that thing in the news? An example of how something some element had multiple levels within it. I don't know. I don't know if magnets have that. Multiple levels of magnetism. Like, or do they grow like that? You know, it's like, where do they come from? You know, it's like, yeah, maybe they come from radioactive waste. Or maybe they come from the sun. There's some indication that the souls that end up being disposed of become or are taken to or the sun and supply something to, I guess. I don't know any more than that. I got that idea from Stu Odie, who was in the group and lived with T and Doe a little bit in their small camp while we were in a bigger camp in Wyoming. And so he got the benefit of having exposure to tea quite often during that time. Let's see. Maybe I don't need to say any more about that because, I mean, the global warming thing, that's what I was trying to use this for, you know, to say that Jesus was talking about, you know, the increase in the hurricanes and increase in the warring. You know, even though the warring, we can, the stress of nations, you know, that's a little different than wars, right? I forgot to go there with the meaning of that word, which the word is sunoke, which is used as distress or anguish, a holding together, a narrowing, the contracting part of a way, the contracting part of a way. Wow, I don't know what that is. Metaphorically, straits, distress, anguish. Oh, straits. Huh. That's like streets. Because this is obviously not talking about, you know, it's using adjectives that are, you know, describing this in other dimensions from straight nuts and bolts. So, so a holding together. So it's like a holding together of the nations. And that's what Trump's trying to do. He's trying to hold this nation together, right? Instead of having everybody from outside the nation having a say in what happens here. He wants to, you know, basically put walls up to everybody else and make it hard or make more money from it, actually, is what he wants to do. That's all he's really doing. He's making more money from it. And then he's got that money to do what he wants with, to put towards all the black budget programs. You know, they can cook the books in any number of ways, so that they can have more money for their projects. And see, none of that's changing. In fact, it increased probably. It became more easier to do, I think, with Trump, because he's requiring these other nations to. So what's that going to do? That's going to escalate in inflation all around the planet, right? Prices are going to go up everywhere, and they'll still make the same profits, maybe more. Maybe they'll take it as an excuse to raise profits even faster, because they've got this. They don't care if people go hungry. I mean, the only reason they don't want people to go hungry is because they don't want rebellion to start in the streets, so they have less to worry about bombs going off everywhere and stuff, and riots, and getting away of the machinery that of all the people that are in bed with it, which goes into all their families and everything. So that's the reason why they would want to keep the peace. And the space aliens that are offering that keeping the peace in their mindset, and the religions are doing that too, which is all worthy, of course. It is a characteristic of members of the next level to be at peace with one another, to be kind to one another, to be gentle with one another, to be considerate of one another, to be not judgmental against one another, to help one another, to do unto others as they'd have them do to you. It's like a 50-50, I think so one for me, one for you would be the way of doing to others. And I'm not saying I've been living like that. But it's not like that's that's something to progress to. It doesn't. That's another fallacy that we can hear in our heads to justify not taking steps forward in those directions, and that is, well, if I can't do everything perfectly, then it must not be worth doing, or why is it worth doing a little bit? You know what I mean? And I experienced that for the first time when T and Do were waking me up again. So that at least my mind was on par with theirs, with their students' mind in that context, enough of a degree that I could be of service to them, which I can never assume, but it's easy to actually stray from the straight and narrow, because it's not popular to talk about some of the things that T and Do believe want us to be faced with. It's not like they want to make it hard for us. They want us to make a choice, and the better we can see the choices, the better. So right from the bat, they tell us the object is to separate from the human kingdom and become a member in a new kingdom. And if you can maintain that desire and attempt to do that through them, through believing that they came from the kingdom that created everything on the planet and all the life forms, and to put it the way that June already talked about it, and then stand up for them when well, in whatever ways that you feel appropriate to stand up for them, and maintain that stand until you leave your vehicle, our vehicles. And that's enough to get an individual saved. Now, if somebody, for a future opportunity to grow more. So I guess if we have a sense that of wanting to continue, then to me that would be taking a chance on a positive. To, okay, say to the next level, you know, highest source you can reach, whatever, however you want to think about it as being the next level above human. You know, how can I be of service to you? Or how can I work for you? How can I, that's the highest way. You know, another way is, you know, at the same time, you know, you can ask that you be treated gently. Not that you need to do that. You know, they understand that it's easy to have conflict with even saying that because of the connotations of service and, you know, that have been put on it. And does that mean I'm going to become a priest and I'm going to go off and live? I got to go off and live with people that are of the same mindset and not do any of these things that I'm doing anymore, which is not the way it is. All the things that you're doing now aren't necessarily going to change. It depends on what you were doing, but you will probably see, if you're not pushing, if you're not desiring to follow that path with your actions, instead of just saying it, then you'll be looking for how the next level is going to help you move in that direction. By putting things in front of you that will be choices, and they're going to be the same kind of things that you were experiencing before, but some of them will be ideas about doing something else, and some of those ideas might be scary, and well, you know, for me, it's been scary thinking about leaving my daughter at all. And the next level is like they've given me so much time and showed me that it's the same experience that the mother bird has, or a mother in the human kingdom has, and a father has in the human kingdom with a child, and but maybe more so with the mother because of the genetic attachment. That's I think more flesh-based, I think, I suspect. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But, well, it's going to happen no matter what as they're growing up. They're going to be changing, and we get tested by that, you know, when they first go on the bus to school, right? And parents know all this, and then if they have to go into nursing care, or not nursing care, but into daycare sometimes, when two parents are trying to make ends meet, they both got to work to do it. And my daughter was in nursing, and I hated leaving her with them, but I felt like I had to do it, and I just hoped that it would be a good circumstance, and I believe it was every time. And so anyway, but you know, but there's many other things that happen to us, of course. You know, I probably don't. You could probably talk all day about them, to me, and I would say yes, yeah, right, I see that, I see that, I see that. So I'm just, you know, giving my little experiences, and I know they're not the only experiences that help minds grow. Everything we go through can potentially help our minds grow, and our own lessons, and to be able to and moving on after we take a fall is a big part of it, and you know, trying to correct what we did before, when we can see, or trying to understand what we did that caused us to have disappointment or caused us to have a health problem, or what we didn't do, you know, what we did or didn't do. You know, trying to understand that there's potential, there's help for that. Nobody is actually away from help to get along with their environment and to grow from it and gain some wisdom about what things work and what things don't work. So you don't repeat things. You don't do the same thing over and over and over and over again. You reduce it each time, you know, or each period of time that you go. Every summer you do this over and over again, you know, and then so next summer you're gonna maybe just not do that thing again, you know. Go do something else. These are easy things for all of us to probably identify with, unless somebody's young enough that they haven't had any life experience much. But which, you know, doesn't mean that you have to have those life experiences to understand them. No, that's where the mind is growing above the vehicle, to look outside the vehicle, so it can see that, you know, there's 10 different roads you can take, but they all lead to the same place of the corporate hierarchy. Okay, so you can, you know, how many of those do you need to see before you realize that I don't really want to climb that ladder? You know, I don't want to make those sacrifices and put on those faces and you know, dress up to it and kowtow to it and whatever else I got to do to try to get out of the mailroom. And because they all seem to compromise something that I feel is greater than that, even if I can't identify it. So I'll you know, I'll do my internet searches, you know, and that's a seeker. That's a seeker that's doing that. Even if it's just searching for some music that they, you know, that can bring him to Uzi Vert, to little Uzi Vert, who is one of the artists that my daughter listens to a lot. So next level makes it easy on us, actually. They really do. I'm sorry if I got into the preaching mode of the pep talk, right? I guess that's what I was doing. Maybe that's boring, but I think it's worth it for the next to go towards the next level closer. That's all I'm saying. And Juno already told me that it was worth it when she left her vehicle. She came back to me in a dream, and it was very clear. I felt I could see how her whole body was speaking. I couldn't tell it was the same body, but it looked like the same body from the shoulders down, sort of, I guess. Something gave me the impression that it was the same body. That's all. Wow, I just had this crazy thought. Imagine if a soul could come into the human kingdom and take a human vehicle and then become a graduate soul, take that vehicle back with them, or even leave the vehicle behind, and then what they go back with is like a module because the next time they do that, they do it again, and now they have 2 modules. And they keep on doing it, and now 3 or 4 or 5 modules that are all like, I don't know, pretty silly, right? And then, see, that would jive with, I don't think it's silly, but because that would jive with the way T and Do taught that Do said, and it's important who said what, that T had grown so much in the next level that she didn't need all of her mind, his mind, if, I don't know, it doesn't really matter what. I should just use her. I have no problem using her, but T and Do referred because it's. I don't want to get into all the reasons why it became a he, but that's just the way the garden was growing, and we have to overcome our gender consciousness. I don't mean that you know, to. I'm not trying to say that to anybody in particular. I know I have gender consciousness. You know, and I don't like when I see that, if I do see it. I saw it the other day where I said something to somebody that, well, that might not have been an example, because I really didn't know what that person was portraying, so I'm not going to go there with that example. Maybe I don't have it, I don't know. I haven't really seen it in a long time. But, whoa, boy, did I get off track that time. In 2 ways. I got off track one time, then with that imagining of the modules, you know. But what the heck. So am I going to finish any of those thoughts? No, I don't need to. They were finished enough, I think. It's also something that happens with me, but I believe T and Do talked about it as they don't switch gears fast. Well, I don't know how it compares to me, but when they're talking about something, I guess I just shouldn't be hard on myself. I was told by somebody that I shouldn't be so hard on myself. So I'm not going to be so hard on myself that I switch gears sometimes. Not that I'm losing sleep over it. I'm not, but I do recognize some of the characteristics of this vehicle that are not too keen. So it's. You get to hear, you know, someone asked me the other day whether I was schizophrenic. And so if they hear me talking like this, they might think, yes, you've got 2 personalities there, right? Which is true, in a sense, because T and Do taught that we actually have 3 voices, each of us. We have the voice of our genetic code, the mind from that, the information, you know, that the way we were programmed, which entails everything that happened in our ancestors. The ways of thinking, you know, ways of responding to different races, and you know, different ethnicities and all that. We've got that voice. And then we got the voice that is the mind of the vehicle that's generated while the vehicle is a vehicle, when it's from birth. That builds onto the genetic code mind, and so then our parents and whatever happens, you know, or not having parents, you know, all, you know, are building that mind. And then the third voice, so I mean, like, let's say you repeated something your mother or dad or caregiver taught you, or a politician said. Then you're using the mind that you got from the society as part of that, of course. And so the third mind is next level mind. And that's when you recognize you want to change something about yourself. You want to go in a certain direction. You want to, now you're, it's the next level mind that's motivating you to do that. So the next level has a way of stimulating that in us. And so that we have a thirst for something. We want to grow, we want to accomplish something, we want to make something of ourselves. We want to serve our community, we want to serve the nation. All those services can, I think, be pathways. I want to have a child and bring some, I want to have joy in my life. Which usually happens in like a time capsule kind of way, I believe, is the way Tiendo talked about it happening in the human kingdom. And so that's who we are. We are the one that's saying, okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead. On the choices, I'm going to go down this road instead of this road. I'm going to try to get this kind of a job instead of this kind of a job, because that kind of a job had these downfalls, pitfalls, and got me into trouble, that I didn't want to get into. That led to other things that were shady or whatever, and just not who I am. So that would be like a new birth when somebody, gets something like that. And sometimes that becomes a religion. And it can really serve somebody. A 12-step program can really serve somebody. And they can move on from there too. Because T and Do were in favor of the 12-step programs. That's why we started a little effort, a little project that was called what was it called again? Anonymous Sexaholic Celibate Church. ASCC, like ask. Anonymous Sexaholics Celibate Church. Thinking that we could go to some of the Sexaholics Anonymous and Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous that we knew about. I think there were 3 groups that we knew about, that I knew about, that they were in California, in the LA area, I think mostly. I don't know, maybe San Francisco Bay Area too. So that's just an example of, one example of how when we take control of our vehicle. That's another way. Let's say we know that using certain substances is killing us. Well, we can take control of our vehicle to the degree that we can try to do without it, or we can and that, one way to go would be cold turkey, of course, and another way to go would be reducing, and trying to substitute something else, for whatever it was, and try not to get, addicted to that one. That can be a lot of things. That can be a religion, becoming addicted to those to the feelings of having found, and having it be the ultimate path. See, you don't get that with Tiendo, because you have to keep on searching for the path to stay on the path. You have to keep on thirsting for more. It doesn't just come to you automatically. That's why it can't be an addiction. Because you have to, because to grow, we need to confront our fears and insecurities sometimes as well, I guess. Yeah, well, it's easier. It's a lot easier, like, for me to do it when Tiendo come around with all their mind and their and then the souls that were coming with them to take the vehicles that they were assigned to try to take, that they had something to do with choosing, according to Tiendo. So, it's much harder when you don't have that strong presence of their mind. And but then they provide more help. As well. So it's like it balances out. Here I am talking about, like, that same subject again, but it goes, it's so tied into everything. But I mean I do things like, for instance, I eat more. I had a half of a flour tortilla today, with rolled up with white chicken in it, and a big one. Not a huge one, but I guess about an 8-inch or something. Yeah. Anyway, so, and that wouldn't be a problem, except, I've been doing something like that every day. And I can feel my knees. I can feel it in my knee. Well, actually, I did other things that I think I feel them. I don't need to talk about it, but that's an example of how I know it's killing me in a sense. It's making it harder on my system, but I can tolerate it right now. And as long as I can keep it in check, just a little bit of pain, I'm going to probably continue to cheat on the diet that would probably not put me through that. That's what I meant by, if it doesn't, that it's killing us. I'm not talking about, literally not doing something that's going to kill you, your vehicle. You don't want to do that. We need these vehicles to learn lessons through, to work for Tiendo through, if we're a mind to. And there's a lot of work to be done. The story's not going away. I got a part of People magazine, some subsidiary of them, talking with me about including me in something, I guess. So, in addition to 3 or 4 others, depending on, how, people plan ahead with these kind of things. Right, there's a big group in England that's, well, seems like it's what my contact said was a big producer in England, one of the biggest producers in England. And see if they want to do something different, then so I'm making my own, and I'll let them use it, I think. I don't know if I'll copyright it or not. Maybe there's a common law copyright. Yeah, so that everything can be used on a fair use basis. You know, Jesus said that let's see, did he say? Well, I mean, it was Daniel who said that that knowledge would be increased, and since the mid-1800s, it sure has. Maybe even the early 1800s or 1700s. You know, I mean, there were increases gradually, but it sure did take off in the early 1900s, right? With, you know, the birth of the movie camera and Edison and Mark Twain. I'm not going to start talking about Mark Twain again. I've talked about him many times in these live streams. But I'm going to go back to the chat room since I'm disjointed right now. Will T and Do send a message directly, perhaps through you? No, they don't send messages to you through me. No, John. Doesn't work that way at all. In fact, if I ever said that, I want you to, you know, strike me down. Because I would have gotten way off the track. Even implied it. No, I can get feelings and ideas from what I think is T and Do's crew. Okay, but you know, and I can, but other than that, even the dreams that I have aren't instructions for me, and they aren't instructions for anybody else either. But they're like clues sometimes, and sometimes they serve multiple purposes maybe, because I'm not, you know, the originator of the dreams, but there's definitely a difference in. I've had a lot of different kinds of dreams, and so I've had enough of them to where I believe that was T and Do and crew communicating with me, because it was students too, and repeatedly sometimes, and very easy to see as helping me awaken. Even though the dreams themselves, well, the dreams themselves even helped me stay away from certain behavior. I'll give you an example. When my partner of 17 years had the opportunity to, well, she fell in love with somebody else, okay? And so and I was hurt by it, but I was kind of glad it happened. Not kind of. I was glad it happened because then I knew I could put more effort into doing what I believe was service to tea and dough on the internet and through my writing. I could put more time into that. So it was a blessing for me, even though it was painful. And so I started to date a little bit. I just went to a website and I registered with a name. I think the name was, well, forget about that. But anyway, there was one woman that I was talking with, and I was ready to drive up to meet her in like Plattsburgh, New York or something. And she wasn't she wasn't ready for that. And so and then I met another woman who I gave a flute to, actually. She was interested in playing it. And I had two at the time. Actually, I might have had three at the time. Yeah, I had three at the time. So I gave it to her, but, you know, I also offered her a place to stay at my house. And right after I did that, I had a dream where Doe was clearly in the dream like I'd seen him before in the dreams. And he said to me, how about being loyal to me? And to me that was like, whoa, you're right, I'm not right. I mean, yes, I want to be loyal to you. And so I didn't, I haven't been with anybody in any way since then. And I certainly don't pursue any companionship, even, you know. So, anyway, so that was my example of receiving help from Doe. It was personal help. But I can relay that to people, I think, and I think it can give them a better picture of what's possible. You know, they taught us to go to sleep and try to remember our dreams, because they said the next level could help us in our dreams with the lessons for the next day. And so maybe because of that, I you know, I had that help. It was easier for me to disconnect a little bit, even though, you know, in the human kingdom it's forced on people, but it wasn't forced on me. And we're good friends right now, but we have no conjugal relationship of any kind. And so so that's also an example of how gentle the next level is with helping us, because it took me a long time, you know, working and years to kind of get reacquainted with those recent material. Those audio tapes, I mean the videotapes of Doe with the shaved head weren't something that well, he did have a shaved head while I was with him, but I never saw him like that on the TV screen. And he was like so ominous, and so, I mean, I even used the word, it was a little bizarre to my vehicle. And I could listen to him for a little while, but then I had to turn it off. And when I would start to, I could feel myself not like agreeing, kind of, you know, like judging it a little bit. And what he was saying is maybe not so kind of, you know, vibration. I don't think I ever heard that thought, but there was just a feeling of that feeling, you know, and I recognize that as something I needed to overcome, and so that therefore has an influence with me, or you know, a booger, what they called the Luciferian space aliens were called boogers by Tiendo. They didn't talk about Luciferians at all until they were starting to write about it in USA Today ad, you know, information put in the form of an ad in the USA Today. 1993. Oh yeah, that stimulated an idea. I never really went through this with anybody, I don't think. Well, maybe I didn't cover that enough about sending a message directly, perhaps, through you. No, we're not going to get any messages unless they're in the form of a sign that Jesus said, or as can be seen within the teachings that they left behind in the book, and in the audio tapes, and in the videos that they made. The final, you know, the final statement, and that's where we get all our clues from. So the Beyond Human series, like Doe talks about Armageddon, he talks about everything we need is in there. And he even talks about how the book, he wasn't trying to cover all the things, you know, explain all the prophecies in the book of Revelation. That it wasn't necessary for him to do that. I don't know if he said it that way exactly. But he didn't feel like he needed to do that. Maybe that's the same thing. Because he was talking to potential new members of the next level that could still graduate in the Beyond Human series, primarily. But that's even potentially us. We don't know where they draw the line. Depends on what we're willing to give. And, you know, to the next level. And includes our vehicle. But not by taking it by our own hand. That's not part of the formula right now. I'm not saying it can't be for somebody. But I don't really want to know about it. If you ask me about it, I'm going to say stay in your vehicle and learn your lessons from it that you can get from it. And I'm learning lessons too. And I was with them for 19 years, and I still believe in them 100%. But I'm not ready to lay down my life. I think at this point, I think that the Luciferians might want me to lay down my life more than I think Doe would want me to. But if I did, T and Doe could still follow through with what they needs to be followed through with through somebody else. They could easily, like Doe said, like Jesus said if there weren't people to tell you all about the kingdom of God, then the Lord could even raise up these rocks to talk about the kingdom of God, and the reality of it that's coming to you through him, through Doe at that time, in the vehicle named Jesus. So it's like, and to me that means the rocks of the earth means from the human kingdom, from this progression of life, from the mineral kingdom to the plant kingdom to the animal kingdom to the human kingdom. That was designed to be a stepping stone into the level above human. Completely scientific stepping stone. But it's the science of mind also that's the biggest part of the stepping stone into the next level. To change the mind, to remove the mind from our human container and fill the soul container that is given to us by the next level with the next level mind, by doing our best to grow towards and accomplish as quickly as possible, adhering to all the teachings from well, I mean, you know, from Tea and Doe, yeah, which would be the 17 steps and the major and minor and lesser offenses. I mean, so those would be like all, and they're all like a progression of different things that we can apply in different ways to the people that we live with and live around. And we'd be cultivating our mind to be something that the next level would then say, okay, now this can become fruit in the future. Individually, even. Because you won't, I don't think it merges. You might merge more with the animal kingdom, with the accumulation of next level mind with the human mind. Because Doe said that in the Beyond Human series, he said, if I remember correctly, that I lost it for a second there. I thought of something else. Interference. I was prone to... Never had a negative about the class. Let's see, I wrote that there. That's not what I was talking about. If anybody can remind me of my last word in the chat room, I'd love to see it. Because I don't want to forget that. But I guess since I did, I'll just move on to something else. Oh, I didn't get to the 2013 thing I wanted to talk about. One of these live streamers. That's a great book. I'm from the chat room. Wow, that's, I think maybe the first time I heard that. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Oh, thank you for that offer of help with technology. Appreciate that. Let me see. I guess there's been. Let me go to the last place I talked about in the chat room, since I forgot where I was going before. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's not worthless to you. Go down some of these roads, right? I guess that's what you're saying, maybe. I enjoy and love hearing you speak. Thank you. Appreciate that. Glad you benefiting. Where are those pictures? Where are those pictures on the screen from? Oh yeah, that's the one where I was before. I didn't actually finish with that. No, they weren't from graphic design for income. No, those pictures are from yeah, I know what you're talking about, Thomas. You knew that they ran websites for people. One of them, I can't remember his name, was an artist. Yeah, Rio or Nioti. He painted the picture of what someone from the next level looked like. Yeah, he didn't actually paint that picture. That picture was painted by Alodi, who was one of the 38. And he painted all these pictures here that are seen on my screen there. Wow, my video settings have been bad the whole time, the whole night. And I'm going to have to wrap it up in a little bit here because I'm trying to keep them until 2 hours, but I'm going to go through the rest of the pictures a little bit. This one here that is to the left of the screen, on the bottom, I mean to the left of me, on the screen. That was something that I think Rio might have had something to do with the artistry of that. I don't know, because I wasn't in the classroom when that was made, that I was aware of. And it's an interesting picture, and one of the pictures of the older member has he's got white hair. But they put that in there. I wonder if they found the scripture that talked about that he would have white hair. And I should go to that. Let me go to that. You're not going to see it in there, but I'll read it. Revelation 2:1 maybe even. Let's see where that is. There it is. I found it. It's right after he talks to the 7 churches. No. Actually, no, it's the introduction to the talking to the 7 churches, where he says, let's see, where should I start? And here starts Revelation 1:5. And from Jesus Christ, who is the faithful witness. He was a witness to his Father in 2,000 years ago. And first begotten, firstborn, in other words, first incarnate of the dead. Of those that died before, like Adam. I don't know if Adam was taken. I don't think so. Tino didn't say they were. He was. And the prince of the kings of the earth. Okay, so the prince, that's, that relates back to the Old Testament, as that Jesus is, Michael is the prince, and I think in the book of Daniel. Maybe or maybe not. Maybe. Okay, and then kings of the earth. Prince of the kings of the earth, right, so that, in other words, he's above the humans. He's above human. He's a member of the next level we're talking about. Unto him that loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood. But I'm not going to go through every word of this because I want to get to someplace else. And hath made us kings and priests unto God and his Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Okay, so that's just telling you who's talking. And so Revelation 1:7 then says, behold, he cometh with clouds. I think he is actually the word he there, or maybe not. Or maybe it's the gender of this. So I'll get rid of he there, because I need to look at another interpretation. I don't want to take the time to get to it. But, behold, cometh with clouds. And every eye shall see him, and they that pierced him, and all kindred of the earth shall wail because of him. Well, he came with the UFOs, the covering, so the UFO 2. And the UFOs are spacecrafts in the next level. In the Old Testament, they were considered to be clouds, because they came to the Old Testament people that way, through the cloud of light that landed right in front of the tent where Jehovah was living when he was here, when he was in his vehicle, or whatever vehicle he had there. And he was behind a veil, so they wanted to give the impression that you can't see him, but that he exists. Because if he was invisible, then why would they have a veil there? Right? And it also accomplished having two veils. I had two veils actually. I had the door to the tent was closed, and then there was a veil inside in the partition within the tent. And Jehovah let Moses touch him. He asked if he could see him. And Jehovah said, if I let you see me, you will die. I guess it would maybe stop his heart or something. Who knows? Fry the brain. We're talking about energy, power, magnetism. Runs all spirits away, maybe it would run even his spirit away, and he'd lose his vehicle. I've experienced how an idea can kind of sort of make me feel like a certain thought could actually bring about a heart attack. Maybe if there's a tendency already for it, a propensity for it. I believe that's possible. And I believe Jesus taught that too, but I'm not going to go to the exact spot because I wanted to get, this wasn't the actual one I wanted to read. I wanted to read about the, where he describes him as having white hair. Which is a little bit further down in Revelation. It's describing the person that's, this voice that's behind John at first. And it's right after they go through, it goes through gets down to Revelation 1:14, I think. He's in the midst of the seven. He's seeing somebody that's like unto the Son of Man. Okay, well, the Son of Man is what Jesus called himself. So he's like that. And or the word like can actually be similar or resembling the Son of Man. Corresponding to a thing is another way it's used. And when we say like, it's a comparison that's it can be very like. You know, it's not. It does not necessarily a casual likeness. So that, in other words, he looks like that older member potentially that already depicted. Or it could even be one, I don't know, I don't want to go through any more options there because it's not really worthy of doing that. Because I might be wrong about it. But to get to the gist of it, he's got a girt around his paps, so in other words, he's restraining his reproductive nature. Or her reproductive nature. It's not, because a man actually, I guess, would have both genders, maybe. I mean, you know, you have the evidence of paps with a male as well. So, even though those are talking about the paps that are the breasts of the female part of the species. So, but that gets the idea across that he's got that tied up. In other words, he's separating away from that behavior. And he's got a golden girdle. So he's using the next level's teachings to be the girdle on that. Next level mind. And then in Revelation 1:14 says that and his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So, and so these are the thoughts that came with this vision, because I know for a fact that some thoughts do come with a lot, right? I mean, we all know that, so I don't have to justify that. But Revelation 1:14. So, but I want to get to the place. It says, and his head and hairs white like wool, as white as snow. So two descriptions there, because you know, making room for the black sheep, right? That would be black hair, but he's saying it's white, and the word white here is lycus, stemming from light. That's actually the first meaning that they give for it, is light, even though they used it as white. And it makes you think, it's from Luke. Luke is actually light. So why wouldn't they just say, but see, then they're comparing it to wool. So it wouldn't, so to translate it as lighting like wool would be like saying a reflection that wool gives you, and that to us is white. That's the first time I actually saw that combination of thoughts go together like that, and I think I got a better understanding of it, maybe. Then they said it twice, which they do a lot of times, in order to make sure we got the picture. That it's not figurative that they're talking about, even though it's figurative, I mean, but it's not, it's going to translate to something literal. Well, they wouldn't have described it against things that were literal, like snow and wool. As white as snow. And that's the same word, lukos, for white, on the white as snow, and the as. Now here, the word as can also be used as like, even as. Even as. So that could be white like snow, or white even as snow, or like, or white, white how is snow, or when is snow, or as it were snow, or about snow. Those would all be the options. So I don't think there's any question that he's describing Noah's vehicle. And if you look at the Beyond Human series, you can see that his hair was pretty white during that time, and it was long. So he could, longish. And when he actually filmed, when he was filmed in, it wasn't like totally white. But see, then, like snow is like lamb's wool can be like a little off-white, right? There's the darker element in it as well. And he was definitely like that during the UFO Missionary Extraordinary pictures that were taken of him in that book. But this isn't the, the reason for white supremacy is because the Luciferians put their facsimile on it. Because they wanted to steer people away from thinking that he would come as a white man, because the white men were so oppressive of so many, even in Europe, right? And maybe even I don't know where. I forgot now where. I mean, some of the Russians are kind of light, right? Well, the northern climate people. Now, maybe I'll go a little further here since I'm... Well, no, let me jump over to Revelation 6, since I'm in the mode of talking about the records. In Revelation 6:1, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering, and to conquer. Well, some Christians are saying that this is Lucifer, a light, because again, that word white, in this context, you can't automatically say takes its color from, its definition from the word horse. And horse, by the way, is the Greek word hippo. I found that funny. But this word is lukos again. So it's translated as white here, but here they really should have really... I mean, why not use... Well, unless that OS has some... I'd have to study the language more, to know, to have a feeling. They did make mistakes, and, there's... but the people that are saying that, there's so many mistakes in it, and it's been tampered with so much that you can't trust any of it, they're wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. If you dig into it and study it, there's so many correlations with one another that it's beyond belief almost how many links there are together with the Moses materials, and even though some of the Moses materials may be totally manufactured. I kind of have a feeling, I wonder kind of about the book of Numbers. For some reason I wonder about that one. But, I don't know. And Doe didn't talk about it. They just said that things in the Old Testament that Moses are attributed to Moses, some of them were distorted. So, I would suspect stoning somebody for collecting sticks on the Sabbath. I know the laws said that you would be killed, you would die if you did these things, but I think that was generally a die in the context of that if you continue to break procedures and then you die, you'll die with the breakage of those procedures, and therefore you won't be a spirit or a soul that would be considered to have sprouted, to be saved by the next level, to be brought back to the next planting time. So I don't know if anybody was stoned at all, but somebody could have been, and it wouldn't have, and Moses could have considered that was a terrible thing to do. And the next level owns all the vehicles. So they have the right to let that happen. And they're the only ones that have the right to let that happen. Humans don't have that right, yet humans take that right all the time. And now we don't hardly hear about it, except one little brief report in a day, you know. Unless one of the members of the United States gets killed, and then it's around a little longer, and they make that person into a hero. They do end up becoming heroes many times because of how they try to save each other. You know, but what Jesus said was, and this isn't be against people that join the armed services now or in the future. I'm not, you know, I hope you're never around something to where people are killing each other. I hope that upon people that are in the human kingdom, you know, going to bars and stuff too, or whatever, you know, even going into, with all these shootings and killings, I don't like any of it. It's all painful, but it's part of, dying is part of living. We all know that, and none of us really want to go. So when it's my turn, I just hope it's fast. I mean, but if you know, and it's thorough, so I don't wake up in a coma somewhere. Not that the next level couldn't stop my vehicle's heart. I'm sure they could. The way my vehicle is, probably at the sight of something like that, or the sound of it, might even kill me. You know, if someone was shooting, I might just get a heart attack from what was happening around me. I don't know. But it's the removal of the mind from the next level that even removes the possibility of some actually believing in the next level exists, I think. Now, I don't think that part of the mind has left yet, because that would be during the seal, the after the opening of the sixth seal, that the heaven is removed from the earth. Heaven as a spacecraft. But so this, I might as well go through the interpretation of the scripture here, and maybe I gotta bring it to a close after that. And so Revelation 6:2, and I saw and behold. Oh, you know, I didn't go through the rest of Revelation 6:1. I mean, there's a lot to say about all this, but the seal is both a further revealing of the next level's efforts and teachings, and which doesn't necessarily mean new revealings, but it can broaden them. So, like even going into the history of how this is associated with Tiando would be part of that seal opening that started. I can see the timing of this has to do with starting when Doe went public as the return of the one that was Jesus, in undercover Jesus services before departure, and in that document. So that's when that part of the seal was opened. To the next group of individuals. And the noise of thunder is the word bronte, which means to roar. It's akin to bremo. Okay, so it's akin to roar. Roar like a lion. Which brings us over to Revelation 10, where it talks about, and 5, where 5 and 10 and 6 are related, in that they're all talking about thunder and roaring. But actually, the noise of thunder is actually the phone, which has to do with the idea of disclosure. So it's this disclosure of that is thunderous. And that relates to the roar of the lion being the most powerful in the kingdom, right? Powerful animal in the kingdom at the time. And it's a sound, a tone, there you go, do, of inanimate things as musical instruments. Do, the name do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. I don't know if I can go that high. A voice. Voice meaning it's going to come out of his vocal cords. Of the sound of uttered words. There you go. Words. Speech. His phone. Of a language and tongue. Those are all the ways that it's used. The same word phone is used. It's used 131 times as voice. That's the same thing as prophecy. To perform prophecy means that you're speaking the truth inspired by the next level. You're speaking about the reality of the next level. You're speaking about the lesson plan of the next level. Whatever it is about the next level. And that's why there's false prophets and there's true prophets. It's one or the other. So this one's sitting on the light horse, or the light white horse, because the horse describes the vehicle. And there's a relationship that made in book of Zechariah, which Jesus referred to Zechariah. And so I feel good about using that to substantiate my interpretation. The way they talk about horses in book of Zechariah, chapter 4, or maybe before that, is that they're compared to humans. And I didn't know that before. T and Do compared humans to horses early on in the classroom, saying that the next level were like the like the ranchers, and they were rounding up the wild in the wilderness of the horses and taking them and trying to tame them and then train them. And the ones that don't take to the taming or the training, they just send them back out again. So that's us. We're all horses. I mean, potentially all the humans are horses. And he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given him to have, and he went for the conquering to conquer. So they talk about overcoming twice here. He went forth conquering, the plural. I think that's kind of like on the move. Conquer, prevail, overcome, even means subdue. But he didn't write in this translation. He doesn't, but it's from the word nikao, spelt like Nikao. And I know I brought this up before, how it's like Nike, right? Overcome, conquer. So wearing those Nike shoes was like having your feet made out of burnished brass, because you've purified you've gotten the other elements out of that brass, so that you have a pure piece of brass. In that analogy, T talked about it that way, as purifying the gold. She talked about it as, and she also talked about it as like drawing the butter, getting the butter from the milk. And the word bow here in 6.2 is actually toxon, which is a bow. But if you look at 5088, which says it's from the base of 5088, it doesn't say perhaps. It says it's from the base of 18, oh, what did I say? Now I'm looking for something else at the same time here. I'm not finding it. Why not? Oh, I need to, it's a icon. Revelation 6.2. Bow. Okay, so toxon from the base of Tiktu, which is 5088. And Tiktu is a strengthened form of a primary teko, teko, tika tika, tika teko, tika teko, teko teko, teko teko. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I'm playing with it a lot though, which is used only as alternate in certain tenses. To produce. That's what it means, to produce. So he's got a producer. He's got some production in his hands. And Tiendo calls it a process. That sounds like it's the process of producing. He called it the overcoming process. To produce from seed as a mother, a plant, the earth. To produce from a seed as a mother, to be a mother. So he's going to be a mother to, literally or figuratively, to bear, to be born, to bring forth. So that's what Do is doing. He's borning, or bearing, or begetting. Well, not begetting, because that's in the physical sense. So it's born in the spiritual sense here in this application, like Jesus said was going to happen when they came back. They're going to be born of spirit, born of water and born of spirit, born of flesh and born of human flesh, and then born of spirit, next level spirit, which is next level mind. Bringing it forth. Get your mind in your vehicle. T would always say that to us. Get your mind in your vehicle. Get your mind in your vehicle. Be delivered. Be in travail. So that's even relating to the Revelation 12 woman who's in travail to give birth. So he's doing the conquering, and he's moving up because of it. In Revelation 12, now he's on the throne. He's able to do the task that his older member did, I think. by being with him. Or I don't know if he's got to do that a number of times before he can actually do the same. I'm not saying he gets to be as he doesn't catch up to his older member, even though theoretically that's possible. But it would be the it's not going to happen. The next level older members are fast growers. They're not going to just decide to not keep asking their older member for new tasks and more growth. It's hard to believe, right? But you must. I'm saying that because of the way T and Do wrote their first book. It was, I can't believe that, but you must. I think T was the primary pen on it. There's evidence of that. But I'm sure that Do well, I don't want to make a supposition, but so I won't. Yeah, so I'm not going to go to the related verses in Zechariah or Revelation 5 and Revelation 10. But by doing that, cross-referencing them and the timing that they're talking about, that's why I come up with so in other words, this happens after he hears the noise of thunder. And that noise of thunder only started, the seven thunders, I think started with T and Do together as the two witnesses. Because that's the roar, and the noise was the voice, right? So the voice of thunder was when T and Do went public with their voices, which was performing the prophecy for 1,260 days. Which was from January 1st, 1973 to mid-June, when we stopped holding meetings and went up to Wyoming. So with that said, I'm going to call it a night. Now I just have to finish these pictures another time. I've got these posted on my Facebook page too. They might be easier to see because they're not so many generations. Because I take a picture of my screenshot to get these. Oh, actually, let me go back to the chat room for a second here. If you ever have any questions regarding computers, I already said that. Newspeak, right? That's a great book. 1984, I guess you're saying. Not my book. No, it's called Newspeak. Was the name of the book I'm thinking about? All right, you got me. Will T and Do send a message? No, we already went through that. No, they're not going to send a message to me through me. No, no more messages from me. No, none from me. Are you under any sort of police watch? I don't know. Not that I'm aware of. But I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm even legal to smoke a little pot sometimes in Vermont. Hello, good afternoon. Okay, that's in the comments. So, I mean, I had a dream actually that was Junodi, and then there were three men that looked like they were kind of dressed in like suits in the dream, and then Pippo, he had an experience he told me about very recently, where there were three individuals helping him with a task, not a task, but not something from the next level, but something related to his having potential income. I don't know. It wouldn't be next level members that there would be three individuals, so it could be anybody. But I made a mistake the other day, and I think I might have, I don't know, there's probably a lot of ways that people could crash my, hack into me. So, but I can't worry about it. I try to stay out of the way of anybody that could have control of me. And I do everything legal. I try to drive by the speed limit for the most part. Well, I was saying goodnight, so I guess I'm lingering on because I didn't finish going through the chat room. So now I have. So I think I'll just call it a night, folks. Appreciate having some eager minds to try to pass on some of these things too. Good night.